Hello, GHAF Church family. Joel here, and welcome to my college home bedroom, office, something like that. Hope you all had a good week and that you have a happy Sabbath and that you enjoy the next video in our interview series.
There's no greater love that I have ever found. No one else I know would lay his own life down for someone like me. And my vanity and pride, with a selfless love, you've restored my life. No other name is stronger, oh, the grave could not contain love so divine it cannot be explained. No greater love than the love that found me. There's no greater love that could ever calm my rage. Oh, there's nothing else that could wash away my shame. Oh, the things I've done, the things I can't believe. Oh, but all I know is that you've forgiven me. No other name is stronger. Oh, the grave could not contain love so divine it cannot be explained. No greater love than the love that found me. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love. No other name is stronger, oh, the grave could not contain love so divine it cannot be explained. No greater love than the love that found me. No greater love than the love that found me. No greater love than the love that found me. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. What a fellowship, what a joy divine. Leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms.
So, hey everyone, good to see all of you today. Now, Glory has already brought up the fact that she is a good, 10, 15 years younger than some of the other people in this in this conversation. And so I just wanted to say that we're kind of having a dual generation thing here. We'll probably hear some different answers from you, Gloria, and some different answers from Clarence and Diana and JJ and Bonnie. So before or as we get started, I just kind of want to ask this first question. We've asked everybody this from some of our pre-conversation. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to look up some stuff. But what's the worst style choice that you have ever had? And Gloria, why don't we start with you?
80s big hair. Big hair. The
Big
problem
hair.
was I kept it going in the 90s.
Oh yeah. Hey, you can't let it die too soon, right? How about you, Bonnie?
Well, mine was poodle skirts, bobby socks, saddle Oxfords in the 50s.
Oh, that was nice. Nothing wrong with that.
You said poodle skirts?
Poodle
Yes.
skirt.
Right.
He doesn't know what that is.
Oh, I'm looking.
Great
Oh,
big,
okay.
a great big circular skirt with crenolines underneath and a poodle dog with a leash on it on your skirt.
On your skirt.
Hey, I don't know what they
No
are.
way. And then bobby socks, they had the frills around the top, I guess. Is that what those
Not
were?
necessarily. We
Oh,
didn't have
lace.
those frills back then.
And
Gotcha.
saddle shoes. Yeah, saddle shoes too.
Yeah.
Oh, I
saddle
have to look those
Oxford.
up. Saddle shoes.
Yeah.
I don't.
Your age is really showing here.
As I'm looking this up, JJ, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I wore jeans that were 10 miles long, and then I had to put the cuffs up. And so people walk around and say, "What are you doing? Trying to prevent a flood?" Because my socks were beneath my jeans.
No way. Wow.
So I see some of that is coming back because I noticed that some of the guys are rolling up their pant legs
Yep.
and that they're not showing their socks. So,
Got to
but,
prepare
you
for
know,
those floods.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Diana?
When I was a teenager, I fooled around with dyeing my hair. And I tried to get it black once and it turned out purple. And it was purple for a while. My mother,
Wow.
That's in style.
That would be right in style today.
yeah, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't have guessed. Were your parents laughing at you, or were they
Oh no, they were upset with me a lot.
Gotcha.
No.
Well, how about you, Clarence?
You know, my dad hated jeans, JJ, so
Yeah.
I haven't worn jeans much my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, frankly, I know this is supposed to be funny, but for me, why my childhood was so filled with verbal and emotional abuse, my memory of childhood is simply trying to survive
Wow.
and figure out how to not get more of that. And in terms of styles, I was oblivious.
Yeah.
I really was. If I had them, I don't know what they were.
Well, I'm curious. Jeans. Was there a stigma against jeans at the time?
You know,
There was. My folks would not let my brother wear jeans to school, but he did. I mean, they did
Was
not
it-
want him to wear jeans.
Was it
Was
just
it
that they were
like
too
it?
casual, or?
And I don't know. They weren't in. Were they, JJ, when you wore jeans? I never wore jeans.
Yeah, we did.
I mean,
And
was it
we had
associated?
corduroys too.
Was it associated with kind of the bad, the lower life in school?
Not necessarily.
I don't
It's
know.
just something we did.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Well, that's
I
interesting
didn't
because
even
that's
have
all.
a pair of jeans
I didn't have.
early on when I was a teenager. They really were not, I don't know, accepted.
Yeah, true.
Wow. Well, that's really intriguing to me. Well, I'm gonna move on to the next question, but it's funny to me because I have almost exclusively worn jeans in my life. So that's and and actually, Gloria, I have rocked big hair, not in the same way, but I grew my hair out and it got to about this big at like sophomore year of high school, because I wanted to have like skater hair, kind of like the long, like flowy, like you like flick your neck and it would just, but my
It
hair
was
doesn't do
curly.
that. It just gets bigger. So,
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this. How long have you been part of Gig Harbor? And why don't we start with JJ and Bonnie?
We've been there from the start.
Wow. So I guess it was 08, 09 that it started?
Right.
09.
09.
So
09.
11
We
years,
are
huh?
charter members.
Yeah.
Charter members. How about
Yes.
you, Clarence and Diana?
We moved here, we retired here just as it was getting started, so we've been here from the get-go.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Wow.
we transferred our membership before moving here to Tacoma, and then by the time we got here, this other thing was starting up, so we transferred to.
We were in
North-
Tacoma one week.
Wow.
Then everybody left,
Yeah.
and we left with them.
We left.
Wow.
We were going with our kids. And
Yeah, for sure.
they would play music.
For a kid. Yeah.
Gloria, how about you?
I was part of Tacoma Central very briefly for a year or two. And then I moved to Oregon. So when I came back, it was GHAF, and that was in 2014.
Oh,
Wow. So about 6 years now, huh?
Okay.
Wow.
interesting.
Well, what has been a highlight for you of being part of Gig Harbor? Gloria, do you want to start with that?
Sure. It's the upper room group, which started out for a year as the Letting Go group. I think it's my most sustainable offering to the church is to facilitate a group.
Yeah. Great.
My wife has said very good things about it. So,
Thank
um,
We have men in it now.
yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.
How about you, JJ and Bonnie? What's been a highlight of being part of Gig Harbor?
Well, having been part of the group at Tacoma Central, and all of the home churches that we had before we had a facility in Gig Harbor, it was tough leaving Tacoma Central simply because that was part of my upbringing, and walking away from a mother church, it was tough, but we had guidelines that we set up, and it's been so wonderful to be in a group where there's no judgment and everybody is accepted and loved. And we've been in a lot of churches throughout our lives, and this is by far the best church we've ever belonged to.
Amen.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
JJ, any other input that you want
Yeah,
to?
I was going to say that for me, I just don't have a political situation in our church. When I came to this church, it was very political. That's one of the reasons why I decided, hey, something's got to give. Either I'm going to get out of this church or go someplace else. And so far, it just so happened that GHF was there for us, and we came back, and it was truly experience of a lifetime because there was no political stuff there, and we were accepted, and it's really good.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, JJ. How about you, Clarence and Diana?
Well, apart from enjoying listening to myself preach,
That's my thing.
Hey, much of what JJ and Bonnie have said, I mean, the church has an unusual and remarkable climate. I think
Right.
to all the churches I pastored, we're at University Church in Loma Linda. It's huge and big, so it's a different animal. But in terms of manageable small churches, some moderate-sized churches, I really do like being in a church with our children and grandchildren, and music is a key thing. I love the music at our church, frankly.
Yeah.
So probably people and music.
Yeah. I would say that the main thing for me is family.
Mhm.
And my husband.
Yeah.
She loves me.
That's sweet. Well, let me ask you this, Gloria. I'm going to ask you this question last, because I'm going to ask JJ and Bonnie and Clarence and Diana this first, and then I'll have you answer, because your perspective might be a little bit different. But what do you think that your generation or people your age or time of life bring to church in general? And Clarence and Diana, why don't we start with you?
Oh,
Our generation.
what do we bring?
Oh, we bring experience, that kind of thing. Be able judgment, hopefully good judgment if anybody wants it.
Yeah.
In Western culture, experience and wisdom isn't valued highly, so I don't know how valuable our wisdom is. The one thing that struck me, I think we bring some ability to model how to live through suffering, which is, the older we get, the more suffering there is. Obviously, physical limitations, but there may be other things too. And I think the opportunity to model suffering with Jesus is something we might bring.
Yeah, very, very true on both accounts. I have experienced your wisdom specifically, Clarence, just from your time as a pastor and sharing it with me. And I've appreciated your willingness to share that with me. But also just it's even seeing it. Oh, thank you. Well, and seeing from afar how your age group naturally is more accustomed with loss or suffering, just from over time in life. And so seeing it from afar, it's very evident that there is this greater understanding and wisdom when it comes to life in general, what it means to suffer, what it means to joy. And so I just wanted to affirm that. I see that.
Thanks. Yeah.
JJ and Bonnie, what do you think? What does your generation or age group bring to church?
Well, I think also I agree with Diana in that it is experience and living through life's journey and the different ups and downs, how we get through it, and how important it is to model the fact that Jesus is our example.
Mm.
And I think that our relationship with him needs to grow, and this would also spill out into the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JJ, anything to add?
Yeah, I think we bring resilience. I've been working with young people for days on end, and basically it's resilience. We can show that we have resilience no matter what it comes to, whether it becomes the gospel, whether it becomes political, we are resilient to stand with that.
Yeah, something I really appreciate about generations that have come previous to mine is a willingness to stick around even when things are tough. I know my generation, and maybe it's a lot of young generations, but I know specifically mine, it's very easy if we don't like something, we're like, okay, we're going to go somewhere else. But and there have been negative effects to those of you who have stuck around maybe too long in some circumstances. But at the same time, it's wonderful to see people who are willing to stick it out and be part of community. That's wonderful. Gloria, I know that you come from you're a slightly different time of life, different age group. What are your thoughts? What do you bring to church and people of your age group?
As they're sharing, I realize there's way more similarities than differences. I'm going to speak to the part of my generation which I most identify with. It's really difficult to just say a generation. I would say the fact that this mix of people that are my age and were born on the bus and still ride on the bus, it speaks to a faithfulness and a comfort in what is familiar. The people I most identify with within our church bring interest in younger generations, investment in youth and children, appreciation for the youth and children, and enough energy and desire to continue to contribute.
That's good.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
well put.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
It's an advantage to our size.
yes, and that is true. And I can say from I can't speak for all churches, but for the few churches that I have been part of, either as a kid or growing up or as pastors, that Gig Harbor does have the barriers between generations are lessened at Gig Harbor. And I think a huge part of that is due to you specifically, everyone in this conversation, but also others in your age groups who are willing to say we love them and we want them to be part of this, if even give some stuff away, which is really awesome. Let me ask you this. This is a question that is kind of meant to open up your life a little bit to those of us who may not have grown up in your time or might not understand some of the things that make you tick. So it's kind of a general question. What was it like growing up for you? But I guess what I'm really asking specifically is, what are some things that were kind of big picture events in your life, in your lifetime, especially early on, that might affect you to today? Clarence or Diana, would you like to start?
Big picture events. I grew up in a split home, so my mother would take my brother and I to school.
Not divorced.
No, they
Religiously.
weren't split. Religiously, they were together. I mean, they were not together. So my mother would take my brother and me to church every week. And it was a long trek. I'm surprised she did it. We had to walk about a mile, then get on a bus for half a mile, and there was the church.
Wow.
But my dad did not go. He didn't mind her taking us. He wouldn't let my mom drive the car. So that's why we had to go the bus and stuff. And that probably shaped my life, mostly. Just getting
That dedication to church and
her
your mom doing it. Yeah, that's so interesting. You say walk a mile and then take a bus for half a mile.
Yeah.
And there's some of us who live like 10 minutes from church and we're just
I know. Or jump in the car. Yeah.
I woke up late. I don't know. But yeah. How about you, Clarence?
The thing that immediately popped into my mind were some key male figures. I alluded, very difficult relationship with my dad with a lot of fear and verbal and emotional stuff. And men just kind of took me on, even in elementary school, all the way through. And I think that they factored hugely in my not ending up with more emotional baggage than I've already got. And I've got a fair amount of it. But even when we were missionaries in the Middle East, my dad was the medical director of the Dar al Salam Hospital in Baghdad, Iraq. When I was 6, 7, whatever,
Wow.
There was a family in the church that would invite us, one of the Schilt children, and there were 4 of us then, and we would quarrel on the way to church whose turn it was to go over to that house and spend the afternoon there and be able to get away from our own household.
Wow.
So, and then on the way, just all the way through, I would say mentors. Mentors were the huge thing on my life right through college.
That's amazing, because you probably saw that modeled and have done that over the course of your life, I'm sure, as well, of just investing in people that, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I did not know that you grew up in Iraq.
I didn't. We were only there 2.5 years. There
Oh,
was
okay.
no school. They were homes. It didn't
Yeah.
work. So we came back very quickly.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Clarence. JJ, how about you? Anything?
Yeah, very simple. I had a split family just like Diana did. My dad was, as we say in Russian, Menashe. My mother was an Adventist. And so my dad taught me the nature. My mother gave me the religion. So we went to church in a Dittman Street church in Los Angeles, which was probably about 2.5, maybe 3 miles from our house, and we walked.
Wow.
And sometimes some of the people would give us a ride, but most of the time we walked. And I still can remember walking back in there. And of course, one of the things that we had was evangelism, you know. And so as we walked back, we'd take the flyers and we'd supposed to put them on the doorstep and stuff like that. But no, we stuck them in the fence and we kept on going because we were just little guys, you know. And so, hey, we're doing our major thing for evangelism.
Wow.
And so I went to the first grade in my public school, and my mother decided that that was not going to happen. She's going to put us into a church school. And so my dad and she had great discussions about that. But my dad said, okay, fine, let her go, but you're going to have to go to work. And so my mother joined into a cafeteria situation, being part of making lunches and stuff like that. And I went to Lincoln Park Elementary School, which was a long ways away. But as I grew older, I used to ride my bike back and forth with my fellow buddies and stuff and so on. But growing up, it was really tough because I lived in East Los Angeles, as the people say.
Wow.
And that means that was, today you're looking at little Tijuana.
Yep.
The house basically has bars on it. The door has bars on it and everything else. We basically walked the streets at night. Didn't have to worry about that stuff. Today, I would go to walk the streets. In fact, I'm not sure I would go in the daylight. So we moved out from that to Arcadia, California, and I took the bus for 2 hours to Linwood Academy and back 2 hours.
Every day?
Bus just to go to the academy.
Is that every day?
A highlight for me, and possibly at that time, my grandfather decided to join the church, and we were baptized together in the Dittman Street Church in 1953.
Wow.
That was a highlight for me. And of course, the next thing too is getting married to my lovely wife.
Well, AJ, let me ask you, were you on the bus 2 hours every day to the academy, or were you boarding?
No, we weren't boarding. Linwood Academy did not have a boarding school. And so we had to ride the bus 7 o'clock in the morning all the way to school, and then get on the bus going back to school. So it was about 4 hours to drive. And so
my goodness,
my mother had tremendous convictions that we should go to school.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Right.
Well, Bonnie, the wonderful woman that he married, tell us a little bit about what are some highlights for you growing up, things that might have been impactful to you.
Well, My mother was a nurse, and she and my dad were divorced when I was 2. And she saw an ad for a nurse in a clinic in the Mojave Desert in California. Now, we were living in Maryland at the time. And so she, because I was born in Tacoma Park at the sanitarium there, and we used to go to the Sligo church. And then she moved to California. I stayed back with my grandmother in Maryland for a year. And a house came available kitty corner in Mojave to the hospital. So my mother rented that house. And then I came to California with my grandmother. And our school, eventually we moved to Lancaster, and our school there was really not satisfactory. The teacher didn't show up much in my 2nd grade year.
Just didn't show up to work.
Yeah, no, she didn't. And so my mother, Christian education meant a lot to her. She ran away from home to go to college at Washington Missionary College in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Because that was another split home. My grandmother was converted when my mother was a teenager. And my mother took it very seriously. And so she thought Christian education was what she wanted. And she also wanted that for me. So we moved to Loma Linda when I was 10. And I went to elementary school and academy there.
Wow.
And so I grew up in Loma Linda. And
Now, Bonnie, did you and Clarence ever cross paths? Were you still there when Clarence was the pastor there?
I don't think so.
I was not, well, I went to Tacoma Academy and Washington Missionary College, and those were the years 56 to 65.
But you pastored at Loma Linda. Were you still there at the time, Bonnie? Or?
No. We were married in 1960 and moved to PUC so Jay could finish college.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what year you came, Clarence, to.
We came 81 or something. We were in University Church from 81 to 90.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. Well, it's incredible how much your family's valued Christian education to the point where you were moving for it. You were driving 4 hours round trip to. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I appreciated the fact that my mother had the vision to move to a town where I could have a Christian education.
Yeah.
And that
That's
was
awesome.
very meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing, Bonnie. Gloria, I'm curious. So if my calculations are correct, you were born in the 50s.
1955.
Yeah. So you grew up through. Wow. You would have hit right at the beginning of Vietnam, through the Vietnam era, and right after, right?
I'm Canadian.
Oh wow. Oh, okay. So that's a little bit of a different experience then. So tell us a little bit, sort of some things that were impacting.
I'm a complete outlier to these lovely folk.
Old people.
Pardon me?
Old people.
Lovely folk. If we're talking main events, I always wanted to go to church school, and in 3rd grade, we were allowed. And my brother got in trouble, and as a result, he was treated really badly. Actually, I grew up in the same church as Bradley Thorpe. He's assistant to the General Conference.
Oh, no way.
Really?
He was actually in the home church the same unfortunate day I was, unfortunate for him. And he has sort of a holy following. And I wouldn't call it revenge, but I had some fun recounting the different things he did in church school as a kid.
That's great.
He reddened. Anyway, as a result of my brother's trouble, the pastors and all the elders came over to our house, and my parents were building a house, a 2-story house, and we lived in the bottom, and the upstairs wasn't finished. And after that meeting, they moved me upstairs by myself into a bedroom, a house that was unfinished with doors and windows. And I was 8 years old, and I was terrified. And the way I got, because our house was between town and the hill going up to the Indian Reserve. And I had been assaulted by, it was probably what we'd call a homeless person on my way home from school in 1st grade. So I was really terrified, and not by a native, but so the way I slept was I started to talk to God. And that is where I formulated, and I know Bonnie's heard this in group, but I formulated my relationship with God was personal. And I grew up in a very violent home, violent by one parent and neglectful by the other. And I think Clarence and I could trade stories, I suppose. The violence was directed towards my older brother. It actually crossed the line into torture. So here I am as an 8-year-old girl, terrified. And I started this relationship with God so I could go to sleep. And ever since then, my view of God, and it was validated by Graham Maxwell when I was in my 30s, my view of God was as a loving, marvelous, perfect father who loved me and stayed with me and sent many angels into that bedroom and stayed close to me. So it matters less. I don't ask God for a lot of listed things. I just ask that I would be willing to be changed and be willing to want what he wants for me. Primarily, though, I know God is always with me. And that's enough religion for me. I always knew that somehow our family carried shame, and I carried that shame for most of my life. I'm nearly free of it. It's why Brene Brown's books have such significance to me. But it didn't matter that some of the shame, most of the shame came from within the church. I would not let it go. And I wanted to be Jesus' little girl. And I was so grateful to God that I started at the age of 10 having major positions in the small church. And I wouldn't let it go. No matter what, I wouldn't let it go. And so now I'm in a place that I don't want to let go. But that was my one and only experience in church school for a very few months. And it really doesn't matter what happens. It's the fact, I don't really think about heaven. I don't really think about death, because today God is surrounding me. Whatever he's got next, great, bring it on. It's okay.
What a crazy thing. First of all, thank you for sharing. That's for all of you for sharing, especially some of the vulnerable things that you've experienced. But it's striking to me that you experience God in such a tangible way throughout all of that, that your experience, it sounds like, with church, which many Adventist churches for a long time have been full of legalism and a view of God that wasn't exactly beautiful or loving. Yeah, where you had found that
arbitrary, harsh, and severe.
Yes, those are very good words to use. You found experientially a completely different God, which is just amazing to me. Without having to, I'm sure, without deep study of Scripture, you experience God in a different way, which is amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And actually, it kind of bleeds into the next question, which you kind of already answered. You can, if you want to expound upon it, you may. But which is, what does your relationship with God look like? How do you best connect? And actually, let me ask you a follow-up question, Gloria. It sounds like your experience with God isn't so much intellectual as much as it is experiential, knowing God's presence. Am I on the right track there?
Yes.
And I don't mean not intellectual as if that's a bad thing. It's more of an experiential relationship.
Yes. It's really interesting because when I was in graduate school, we had to pick a theory of therapy. And I had a wonderful supervisor at my internship. And every week I'd say, "What's my theory?" And he'd say, "You'll figure it out." And then finally, after about 1.5 years, I said, "I think I'm an experiential therapist."
Huh.
And he said, "You think?" So he'd known all along. I wouldn't give it. So that really is the focus of my therapy as well. I do read, and I read deeply, especially now that I'm homebound. I don't have to commute or my 11 minutes. But I read to consider beyond what's been told to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like when I say not as intellectual, sometimes that can sound like a negative thing, as if you're not intellectual, but rather that some people, as you said, you read and it changes your experience, as opposed to there are others of us who we get so deep into the study of a word that it doesn't change our experience so much as just our intellectual knowledge. And so that's, yeah.
Well, it's not an insult to me at all, because if you may not have been there when I was talking about joining up with Judith for the upper room, and I used the Venn diagram of the brain where you have the intellectual side and the emotional side. When you combine the two, you have wisdom.
Yeah.
She's the intellectual side, I'm the emotional side. We're actually opposites.
Yeah.
So that's not an insult to me at all, because the experience, that is where I believe change happens. If you don't have the experience, all you can have is a mental decision.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I was curious about that. So thank you for expounding on that. JJ and Bonnie, what are your thoughts? What does your relationship with God look like? How do you best connect?
Well, I connect through my devotional time, and then also following up with the scriptures that are a part of that reading for the day. And I enjoy prayer, and I pray often through the day, just little, help me, or give me the courage, or give me the strength, or patience, or, whatever the need might be.
Yeah.
I think that through prayer and Bible study and growing my relationship with God is how I connect.
Yeah, that's wonderful. JJ, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's not easy to say, but basically through prayer, which again, like Russ has already said, we lack prayer in that because we're not sure how to do prayer. When I was teaching, I was praying all the time because some of those guys, especially 7th and 8th graders, you know what those are like.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything that they did.
You did.
I loved the 7th and 8th graders, but boy, to tell you the truth, it really drove me to prayer at this point. Today, it's not quite as great because you don't have that experience. And you're sitting at home and you're alone with my wife or whatever the case is. Prayer does not really need to be that much spent. I connect with God by prayer, especially when I get up in the morning. Make sure that, hey, I'm alive, I'm here, ready to go. And then there's no place to go. But anyway,
True. Yeah.
so that's my relationship with God. And it's probably on a downside, sorry, because I'm not teaching, which was basically on the upside, because I was teaching everything, Bible included and whatever,
Yeah.
and so on. One of the nice experiences was I've had a lot of teachers, a lot of students, I've said, and I taught at Sacramento Union Academy, and we had a prayer meeting, or one of my kids were coming together and said, hey, we want to have something. We have something here. And I looked at him and said, well, this is the Bible teacher. Let him. No. We want you as an English teacher. We want you to deal with it. And so I said, well, tell you what, we'll do whatever you want to do. Well, we don't want to meet on Wednesday night. That's no good. Okay, we'll meet on Tuesday night. And so established the STP group, Student Teen Power. And they went ahead and do an awful lot of evangelism. We sat there in the hallway because they didn't want to use my desks. We want to sit in the hallway. We sat in the hallway and we sang songs.
That's awesome.
Experiences back and forth. It was really a great relationship, and to see these kids going out. And one of the kids, some of you may know, is Steve Case.
Oh yeah.
No way. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's one of my students. And in fact, in April, we were supposed to go to the 45th reunion of Steve's class. But you know what happened? It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we didn't get a chance to meet with him and Merritt at that place. But
well, I remember I've actually talked to Steve. He's done a bunch of youth work in Seventh-day Adventism, very well known for it. And so it's so cool that you were part of his development. That's awesome.
Part of our group and part of my student coming in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, there were several other people that you probably know that were part of my group.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's cool.
that was an experience.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm going to ask Clarence and Diana, what about you guys? What does your relationship with God look like? How do you best connect?
I'd say mine is mainly prayer and a lot of prayer for other people.
Yeah.
And especially with what's going on now. There's so many people dying and hurt, and for church members, and I have scripture cards that I use a lot, that I have put on cards, and we read together scripture and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
And for me, I have the benefits of being tied down to my lung machine twice a day for 30 minutes. And so that is key time for me for prayer. And most of you know, scripture memory is a big thing to me, and reviewing text is probably a key way of connecting with God. And I'd say a little bit music. I'm not a big musician, but I like more. The thing I wish, I was thinking about how preoccupied we are with the virus, and we're either talking or thinking about it, around it, whatever. I still wish my thought life were more that way with Christ, where he was, his ways and words were just almost a constant preoccupation, like the virus is with us now. I'd like to grow a lot in that area.
Kind of the Paul idea of prayer without ceasing does not necessarily always has to be speaking, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I have one more question for all of you. This is for a few of you. It is kind of talking about what you would hope to see. You've seen a lot, but what would you hope to see in Gig Harbor specifically? I mean, like, you have a different perspective. For some people who are my age or younger, we can be grand in our hopes and our dreams, but you have seen a lot. And so with your wisdom and your insight, I am curious, what are your hopes and your dreams for our church, and what do you want to see God do at Gig Harbor? And so in fact, actually, why don't we do this? I'm going to start off with JJ and Bonnie, and I'm going to go to Gloria, and then I'll have Diana and then Clarence close it out. Fine. So, JJ and Bonnie, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes? Yeah,
I have a client at 2.
you do. Why don't you start?
I apologize. My hope is that we become a place where, and it already is beyond any Adventist church I've been at, where we are less concerned about the baptism and more open-armed to people who aren't on the bus, and they get to come, and our motivation is love, not love and conversion. That by our love, God will take care of the conversion. That through our compassion, God will take care of conversion. My group does attract some people not of our faith. And the experience has been a very loving one. And I want, someone said, oh, they're missing the best part by not staying for church. And our job is to love and be compassionate. So I would like to see that embraced more.
Well, and also we're noticing with a crazy, what's the word, with the pandemic and everything, that one of the first things to go is gathering together in a communal church service type of way, whereas the love and the compassion and community doesn't have to stop. And so, yeah.
I have 2 people, 3 people, one who is of our faith and 2 that are not, that will be joining Upper Room, and really just hearing about it and wanting to be part of it.
Yeah.
And so we have this opportunity to embrace without, if the intention is, I need to get you baptized, that will be felt because we feel each other. We do experience each other. If the intent is, I want to get to know you and how I can support you. We've had one gal who has come for ever since we started, and it's very meaningful to her. And so we've succeeded in that regard. But that, I think there is leave the conversion to God and leave the compassion, love, embracing, acceptance, where you are, how you are. That's our job.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Gloria. Whenever you have to leave, feel free to. You don't have to worry about that. But thank you so much for that dream for the church. JJ and Bonnie, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes and dreams for the church?
My hope is that we attract more young people. Basically 7th and 8th graders, that's fine.
sounds like you got the experience to be great.
But I'd like to see more and more young people in our church. Basically wandering back and forth between old folks and the younger folks, but we have more young people. I'm so glad to see that we have 2 or 3 new babies in our church, which means that
4.
4. Okay.
6.
So,
6. 2 of them had seconds.
Yeah, right. But that's the growth of our church is going to be within the young people.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Jay.
Because my time is well over. I'm gone over the hill past that type of thing. So
yeah. Well, hey, I'm just saying that Abraham and Sarah,
that's right. I know that too.
I'm just kidding. Bonnie, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's been wonderful to be a part of this church for the last going on 11 years. And the love and the compassion that everyone has for each other, I think, should just continue like we have been.
Yeah.
The acceptance is wonderful. I know one weekend my granddaughter was going to come for the weekend, and I said, "Why don't you come to church?" And she said, "Well, I didn't bring church clothes." And I said, "It doesn't matter." I said, "People wear jeans to church here, and it's okay." She couldn't believe it. It's just, so we are accepting. I love that. We are open and love anybody that comes through the front door, and reach out in friendship and love. And I think that we should just continue to do that.
Yeah.
And also reach out to the community as much as we can. I think we do that through our holiday giving and the different projects that we do and help the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Diana, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes and dreams?
I agree wholly with Gloria and both of you on the acceptance and getting more young people. We've got a lot of young people that have come in, and just loving the people. It's great. Yeah.
Well, Clarence, you've been part of this church for a long time. I know that people have a lot of respect for what you bring to the church, for both you and Diana, for what you both bring to the church, and you've had a pastoral voice in this church for a long time, and so I know that you hesitate to, you don't want to impose that voice on others, but I think
the
people really.
Non-pastor. You weren't here the days when I called myself the non-pastor.
Yeah.
Non-pastor of GHAF.
Well, but you have a pastoral voice, and I think that people really value it, and so I am curious about your thoughts, your hopes and dreams for the church.
I would dream about ministry / mission, whatever you want to use, corporately. What I mean is, I think it would be very significant if we step it up and do mission ministry together, and that will have upsides and downsides, because when we work together, familiarity breeds contempt, that kind of thing. So if we and that would bring us closer, which would make it more challenging for us not to run when things don't go well. But if we stayed by, I think a couple of things would happen. The level of bonding and fellowship would deepen a lot, and in terms of they'll know you're my disciples by the love you have for each other. And I think ministry mission together would deepen that love, even though it would be threatening and hard work. And
when you say mission and ministry, what are you referring to?
I don't know.
Gotcha. No, I love it. I love it.
It's just that we would work together
for
Christ.
I love it.
Besides working together to make sure Sabbath morning goes well, we would beyond that. And then there, as I say, it would have all sorts of ripple effects, both challenging, and if we'd stay with it, I mean, it's kind of like marriage till death do us part. All right. And I love Gary Thomas's book on sacred marriage. His subtitle is, "Did God give you marriage to make you happy or holy?" And anyway, I think we would become holier even with the challenges of working closely together. And if we were working together, we'd have much more to pray about. Because the minute you start doing things for others, the level of helplessness and need is remarkable, and it would deepen our intercessory prayer life and with the Lord. And so the ripple effects of doing mission together, and I have no idea what it would be, but I would love to see that. And then the spillage of that into the community, where they'd be blessed by our mission, but also they might notice that we love each other and more beyond just superficial, how are you, Sabbath morning kinds of stuff.
Absolutely.
Man.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I think that's, I think that is the scary part for us as Christians. We don't want to, getting too close is scary because then we might have conflict. But, Jesus spent 3 years with his disciples, and what's crazy is the stuff they did together afterwards was even greater than what he did, which he promised, which is amazing. So I love that. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I know that you have a voice, Gloria, as well, have a voice in our church that is unique and different. And sometimes it may feel like younger generations have the loudest voices because there's the youngest and the passionate and coming in and going to change things. But what you have helped create and have been part of and have been dedicated to is a wonderful thing and so valuable, not just to the church, but to the world beyond it. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And
thank you.
Thank you for being part of this. I'm looking forward to the discussion and for you to share more stories as part of that discussion in the time after. So, yeah. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.